yeah, I think what I've been enjoying lately is, I mean, like Sonic Souvenirs, we've been not so much focusing it only on the waves, but also part of it's been like the music and the culture. And
Hmm.
I think that when you go to all these destinations and you get to kind of experience the culture and you get to listen to the music and surf different waves, it allows you, I think having that influence allows you to surf those waves differently.
That was Mikey February. I'm Jamie Brisick. You're listening to Soundings, brought to you by the Surfer's Journal. The Surfer's Journal is a member-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Yeti. More of a book than a magazine, TSJ brings you 120 pages of independent storytelling every 8 weeks, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. To learn more or to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. There is style and there is steez. And I like to think of steez as a more visceral kind of style, a style that you feel in your bones when you watch it. Mikey February has steez, giant steez. He's 29 years old, he's married, he's a father, he grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. He did 1 year on the world tour in 2018, and then he dropped off. And I'm actually very glad that he dropped off, because he's been able to explore surfing outside of the shackles of competition, shall we say. Mikey was recently in California. We caught up at my place in Malibu. Before we sat down and talked, we had a surf together. And it was incredible to watch Mikey fly across the waves at Third Point, Second Point, and First Point Malibu. Mikey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you grew up in Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah.
Who were the surfers that you looked up to when you came on the scene?
When I was younger, I think, I don't know, I probably looked up to a lot of the people that were on the world tour in the early 2000s.
Uh-huh.
Guys like Mick, Andy, Kelly. Yeah, I kind of had like a more of a surface level view of surfing from the very beginning, really. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Were there local surfers in Cape Town that were, the ones that at the breaks that you would ride that you would look up to?
Definitely. I mean, as soon as I started like progressing and eventually started competing and stuff and moved to Komiki, where most of the surfers in Cape Town live, that's where I met people like Damien Farnford, and like he was pretty much like one of the older guys that was surfing the best, and I looked up to him a lot. My older brother, who's around Damien's age as well, Brendan Gibbons, a few of those guys were just like 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just kind of looked up to them and just with, all my other friends and yeah.
So I've surfed Atacom a couple of times, and as I remember it, it was a big, coming from deep water, cold left-hander, right?
Mhm.
It's like a meaty wave, a powerful wave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was that a break that you were riding at a young age, or did you sort of work your way up to that?
Yeah, my first sort of stepping stone was surfing Long Beach, which is like that really fun little A-frame, kind of like lowers cobblestone into some sand. And that was the one wave that I was pretty intimidated to surf there when I was younger, but then, yeah, slowly but surely progressed. And like you said, we have lots of other fun waves. I feel like Komiki's like, kind of reminds me of West Oz, but the average version where we have like these really perfect slabs and outer reefs, but there's just a few little things, like just minor things that just make them not perfect.
Yeah.
Which sucks, but at the same time, it's kind of good because
Yeah.
it just, kind of grooms you in a nice way.
Yeah. My experience in Cape Town was that it was just a very alive ocean and kind of wild wind. A lot of these waves, like that have a Lindado, as I remember, is kind of a ricocheting thing, like just a lot of water moving around,
Mhm.
cold, the big kelp bulbs, and a lot of rocks.
Yeah, a lot to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of water moving. It's wild, and there's just, the ocean's pretty wild there. And I don't know, it's kind of nice though, because I feel like it makes, especially with the water being so cold and dealing with all those elements, kind of makes anywhere else in the world so much easier to just jump in the water. Like,
Yeah.
even if it's like, pretty shitty or something, it can be, the water's always warmer or the waves are always a touch more user friendly, which is nice.
Yep.
And I feel like that helps so much when you're growing up around that, and that's like your kind of base. I feel like, yeah, it just makes everywhere else easier and more appealing.
Yeah. How did you find your way into surfing?
Yeah, my dad, he started surfing when he was like, I don't know, in his late teens, I guess, and he actually started kneeboarding first, and then soon after started surfing. And when I grew up, he was kind of the one person that I knew that, I mean, we'd go on the weekends and watch him surf and stuff, and he was the guy who took me surfing for the first time. I was a little bit intimidated, like, I don't know, there's something weird about having your dad take you surfing for this first time where you don't trust him as much as, like, I don't know, an instructor or a coach or something.
Uh-huh.
And he took me a lot of times, and I was just a little bit intimidated, and I'd kind of, get out like in the water and stuff, and I just never stood up for the first time. And then eventually one of my friends, when I was like 7 or 8, decided to go try surfing at a surf school, and that's when I actually stood up for the first time. And yeah, which was kind of nice.
Surf school, would that be somewhere like Muizenberg, a beach break type wave?
Yeah, Muizenberg, like
Okay.
super, kind of where everyone learns to surf in Cape Town.
Yeah, I remember that. And so when you hit that point, was there a moment where you're like, this is just, I'm a natural? Like, watching you surf, there's a flow, there's a grace, there's a sort of ease to your surfing. And I'm just, I watch you, we just surf Malibu now. Like, I look at it, I'm like, I would imagine you just popped up and you were flowing.
I don't know. When I was young, I was super like tall and lanky, maybe still am, but kind of body kind of went all over the show. So wasn't as smooth as could be. But
so you start there, and then you join the amateur ranks. I would imagine you started competing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at first I was just like all my friends, or maybe all the friends that I made from starting to surf, and everyone was hanging out at the beach, and we all shared this like new love for surfing and just something new. So I think that was a big driving force, just enjoying it so much, and maybe subconsciously also just falling in love with surfing. But
yeah.
And then naturally you just kind of want to do whatever your friends are doing. So everyone started competing. So I was like, I want to start competing. And yeah, I don't know. I started maybe when I was like under 10 and then under 12. And then, started doing well in events. Or, I mean, South Africa, there's not a crazy amount of surfers like, America or Australia or Europe. So our contests were a lot fewer people, and ended up, making the finals, and then eventually started winning events. And it was a really cool feeling, and it was just kind of I don't know, I enjoyed it a lot.
At what point and what made you want to be a pro surfer? Was like, I would imagine for most sort of surfers that have a big career, they sort of see this thing, right? Like, often the typical story will be like the pro contest came to town, or their parents took them to the US Open at Huntington Beach, and they watched all their favorite surfers, and they went, that's what I want to do. Was that moment for you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad always exposed me to, like, we'd always go to the local surf shop and watch all the latest like movies and stuff, and then obviously look at all the magazines, and obviously you had that influence and that to look up to, and then obviously just being with your friends. And I think anything when you're young, like, you kind of, anything that you're obsessed with, you kind of just say like, I want to do this when I'm older.
Yeah.
But then I think having that thing, like having contests at such a young age and then doing well in them, it kind of feeds that sort of desire. And even if it might not happen, it's still like, you kind of put all the pieces together, and you're like, I'm winning contests, and this is what I'm seeing in magazines and films and stuff. Like, I want to carry on doing this. So I think that was the moment when everything was kind of just seemingly just going the right direction, and I just wanted to carry on doing that, really. Yeah.
When was your professional debut?
I guess I'd say, I mean, I did a lot of national events and stuff, and maybe until I was like, I went to ISA World Games when I was 14 in France, and that was the first time I could see a lot of the younger guys that would, like, I don't know, like Calore and like just a few of the younger guys that were, doing really well in surfing, and had all the sponsors and all that kind of stuff, and all the movies, and then I think I went to King of the Grums once, which was when I was like under 16, and got to be a part of that, like Quicksilver Pro, and watch guys like Dane and all those guys, but then also get to surf the little contest that we had going, which was cool. Yeah.
Did you look to the world tour as like, that's the direction I want to go, or were there surfers who are more expressive, more free surfers that also inspired you?
Well, I mean, I guess that was at the time where I feel like there was I mean, professional surfers had a balance of putting out video parts and all those like team films and stuff, and then also doing the world tour. So naturally, that's what I saw, and I was like, and it was when guys like Dane was still on tour and putting out amazing like video sections and stuff, and I was like, okay, that's a nice balance. Like, I kind of want to just do that, and like maybe that's what it'll be like, which it's not really like now. So yeah, and I wasn't really exposed to much free surfing or just, I don't know, like, yeah, just seeing guys compete, but then also going on surf trips and doing films. I was like, that sounds good. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. How long were you on the WQS before you qualified in 2018 to be on the world tour?
Quite long. I mean, I also just growing up in South Africa, I feel like sponsors would only really give you money, or like the little bit of budget that they had was you could only do the QS really. And there was no, besides guys like Frankie and that I didn't really have much of a view on. I didn't really get, like, wasn't exposed to much of him growing up and didn't know that avenue. I guess like you kind of, the only way that you could do surfing for the rest of your life was to do the QS and do the tour and stuff.
Yep.
I think I was maybe 17 when I went to Europe for the first like QS, I guess. So 17 to 25. So good. Wow. Yeah, a lot of years on the QS.
And with the QS, it's different to the world tour where there are just a bunch of events, and you don't necessarily go to every single one, right? You pick the ones that and get your points. You know, I think a lot of the surfers from the QS will say it's a grind. At least once they get to the tour level, they'll look back and go, that was a grind. Did it feel that way, or was it fun?
It was super fun. I mean, it's such a funny, I don't know, surfing in the sports sense, like you expected to just travel around the world, which is pretty crazy on such a small budget. I mean, the majority of the surfers. And I mean, it was super fun. We got to, I mean, just hanging out with friends and going to places that you've never heard of. And sometimes, I mean, more than often the waves were pretty shitty, but it was still fine because, I don't know, you get to surf and you get to hang out and have a good time with everyone. And obviously that got a bit repetitive after a couple of years, and you know, you kind of wondered if you're going to start doing something else in life. But it was cool. I enjoyed it. And I mean, obviously it was a grind in the financial sense. It was the financial sense and the competitive sense. Like, obviously you'd go to a place and you'd spend all this money and maybe make 1 or 2 heats and not even get to surf fun waves. And that was pretty frustrating. But it's just like a roller coaster of different emotions and like good times and bad times. But it was cool. Like, I'm stoked to have experienced it, and it was a fun thing to do while I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a pro surfer many, many years ago on the tour, and at the time there was no division between QS and CT, so it was or World Tour. So it was, so there were trials, and then you advanced into the main event, earned a small amount of money, got your points. At the end of the event, you went and looked at the rankings and looked at where you sat. But the thing that I do not miss at all, there's plenty I miss, but the thing I do not miss is I always felt like your self-worth, your self-esteem was so related to like what number, there was a number on you as to like how where you sat. And it was, I didn't know it at the time because we were, you're 29, I was in my early 20s. And it's sort of like, I didn't know any better, but now I realize like, you don't need to have like a number pinned on you to determine how good you're going to feel about yourself. Was that like a mind thing? Was it play on your mind to the number of like, am I going to make it this year and all that stuff?
For sure. I think, I mean, I was fortunate in the sense that like, I mean, but yeah, it's just not a nice thing to kind of just be able to like compare yourself or your happiness and all that kind of stuff. Like, just constantly like trying to make heats and watching your rating go up and down. And I mean, I was fortunate because I felt like every year it got slowly a little bit better, and I kind of judged the, just success or whatever on that. But it's still not a nice way to judge success and happiness. But yeah, it was, I mean, I think now looking back, getting out of it, I'm just super happy to have left that way of thinking and feeling, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But clearly 2017, you had a good season because it qualified you for the 2018 season to be on the World Tour. What did it feel like when at the end of that year, when you looked at, you were probably looking at your fellow competitors and hoping this guy loses and all of the things that you do. And then all of a sudden you're like, yes, I'm in, I made the cut.
Yeah.
That must've been a good feeling.
It was. I had a bit of a weird one because when I guess going into the last event, there was a few people that needed to like positions and stuff. I had one heat where if I made it now, looking back, I would have qualified at sunset, like done. But then I ended up losing, and then one guy below me ended up getting a result, and he just fell just under the cut line or whatever you want to call it. But and then so I was like 2 places out of qualifying, so I was pretty upset after sunset, and just coming that close was just like not a good feeling. And then pipe happened, and then the guy who was, I think it was Pat Gadauskas or whatever, he was just above me. Someone ended up double qualifying on the world tour or whatever, and then he ended up qualified, like he got the call during pipe that he qualified, and everyone was super happy. And then I was kind of just like hoping maybe I'll get something, and I ended up getting the injury replacement, so like wild card or whatever. So like knowing that most of the time someone's going to be injured and you're going to maybe get into the event. And then that was the year that following year was the year that Mick, one of my friends actually who knows Mick, was at his house one day, and he called me and he was like, hey, I was just chatting to Mick, like no one really knows, but he's going to retire this year. And then that was the good news that I got in like maybe January or something.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a weird way to qualify.
Yeah, but it must have been pretty great too, right?
Yeah, it was really good. It was cool. I mean, it's rad. It's a weird, strange way to qualify, but it was cool that it happened in that way. And yeah, it wasn't all for nothing. Yeah.
So 1 year on the world tour, what was it like?
Obviously, it's really fulfilling to reach a goal in your life, and especially being on the qualifying tour for so long. It felt really good, and I felt like, okay, this hasn't been all for nothing, and I at least can say that I got there, because there's so many good surfers that don't get there, which is pretty crazy. But I don't know. I mean, it definitely wasn't the same as what I imagined, like what I was saying, what I looked up to when I was younger, and like the guys who were competing but still going on trips and still having like just having the freedom to be themselves, and just a balanced surfing lifestyle, really. It wasn't the same. I mean, I feel like the level of professionalism, I realized that when I was on tour, I guess, just seeing the guys who just put in so much time, and whether it's diet and fitness and all that kind of stuff, and just super like straightforward focus on one single thing. And I mean, I was thrilled to be there, and obviously taken by finally get to go to destinations where there's some good waves. And for the first time, I'm working on boards that are for good waves, because before it was just kind of like grindy QS waves, which was exciting, and it was all new. And obviously that takes a lot. Even though it's all good things, takes a bit of an adjustment, because you're not used to that side of things. And I mean, it's the difference between the QS and the World Tour is so different, and I feel like it takes a lot of adjustment. But
in what way is it just the higher level of surfing? There are fewer events, and the waves are better, typically, or held in better waves?
Yeah, I mean, for the years before, like I was just spending time surfing pretty bad waves and trying to like get good at doing that, and surfing on short, wide boards that kind of would work. And then all of a sudden, I'd never really been on like good wave surf trips and stuff like that, and all of a sudden have to learn how to surf good waves, and that was just completely new and different, and which is weird, because you'd think that surfing good waves you automatically just surf better, but obviously those guys have been doing it for a longer time, and that was like, I was like, oh shit, like this is actually hard to like adjust to. And I mean, enjoyed just going to all these places and stuff, but yeah, I don't know, I think maybe halfway through the year I slowly realized that maybe this is not really where I want to be, even though it was a great achievement and stuff. I think halfway through the year I went on my first first film surf trip to Ghana, which was pretty exciting. And that was like the first time that I don't know, just felt like really fulfilled in like a creative, fun way, where just freedom of riding different boards. And yeah.
What about that really surreal thing where you're putting on a jersey for a heat, and you're looking over, and there's like your heroes? Like the thing that I find so interesting about I guess this would be true of all pro athletics, and if we were talking to tennis players, they would say the same thing, is like you hit that point where you hit the major league, or you hit the world tour, and the people that you're supposed to kind of build the confidence to like go out and try to beat in the heat, They're the same guys that you've probably been looking up to for the last 5 years, and they're
Yeah.
like, there's no higher level than that, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild when you're like getting ready for a heat and you got like Kelly or someone
Mm-hmm.
getting ready and you just like you're still in awe because I mean your whole life you've looked up to these people.
Yeah.
You know, which is weird. And then obviously that and then the added pressure of like you're in the top 34 people in the world and you're not like 144 guys at one event. Like you actually just these fewer people at one event where there's so much money put into this event. There's like media, there's like this big setup and it's just like so many people coming to watch and there's good waves and it's like just it's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird going out for a heat when I don't know, Curious is a bit more, I mean not as much freedom, but it's not as intense when you're paddling out for a 25-minute heat.
Yeah. I mean, there are fewer eyeballs on it, I guess. I mean, I guess the interesting thing about the kind of dream tour is that some of the events are in somewhat remote places in the world, but we all know that there's the webcast that everyone's tuned into.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, was there a highlight moment? If you think back on that 1 year on the world tour, is there a moment that I know there was a really great, I want to say it was an expression session at Jeffreys Bay, and maybe it was you and Stephanie Gilmore just out alone in waves. It was like,
that was fun.
I don't want to pick for you, but what was your highest moment in your world tour year?
I mean, that was a really good moment with Steph and being able to ride those boards out at J Bay, just because it was the same setting, same everything, but just like you didn't have any pressure and you could just surf and have fun. And we had a couple waves together and just it was just super enjoyable and relaxed. And the other one was probably Tahiti. I mean, I got my best result there, but it was the first time that I went to Tahiti and it was such a beautiful place. And obviously it's really nice there because you don't have as much of a crowd and that many people. Like you just kind of out in the lineup before your heats and there's not like crazy amount of spectators. There's a few people on, I mean, the boats are pretty close and it's kind of weird because, you know, you feel so close to the people when you're taking off on a wave. But I had my best result there and it was just a nice, peaceful, enjoyable event. It was beautiful and I just had a lot of fun there, which was nice.
Did you feel comfortable at Chopu?
I was fortunate. I think, I mean, I wouldn't say I was fortunate. I mean, I would have loved if the forecast was a little bit better, but I think the biggest wave that came through was like 4 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I took like 12 boards down, just stressing. Never surfed a wave like that. And obviously, I feel like if it was going to be bigger and better, hopefully, I'd like to think that I'd have the courage to try and get one of those good ones that could be one of the best waves of your life. But at that time, I was just checking the forecast like a couple of weeks before and just stressing out a little bit. But the waves were fun and it was a fun event. Yeah.
Nice. And then thinking back on that year, what did you like least? What part of it did not live up to expectations when you were a younger guy going, gotta be great to be on the world tour?
I think just the competitiveness and the professionalism like was different. Like you just always had eyes on you, which kind of sucked. Like just every surf, you know, that you have like the world's best watching you, plus all these like other spectators and stuff, and you just feel so boxed in because you're like trying to like get your boards going and working and stuff, but you feel like there's not much room for error and it's just a stressful situation. You know, you just can't have as much fun as you'd like to, which was probably my worst part of it.
Was there a part where you went, maybe this is not my thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I obviously didn't get, results also make a difference. Like I didn't get the results. I mean, I feel like some people come on tour and they fall into that whole thing pretty smoothly and easily, but I feel like it definitely requires some time to find your feet and stuff. And I mean, obviously, like I didn't re-qualify. Obviously, I tried my hardest, but you know, that's also one factor that helped not, you know, carrying on with that. But yeah, I don't know. I think after the first sort of free surf trip that I went on for my own project, I think that started kind of opening my eyes to like what is more enjoyable for me and what could be where I'd like to put my energy and stuff in surfing. I mean, that year I remember I got my first board from Mark Richards, and then I got a Bonza from Malcolm Campbell, and just getting to ride those in between, maybe like halfway through the year, I got to ride some of those boards, and that was really enjoyable. And also, like, I was kind of frustrated because at times I was like, flip, it would be really fun to like ride like, I don't know, a twin fin or something in a contest, but I hadn't, because I've been doing the QS and then the tour, I hadn't had, and I feel like it's, any board requires a lot of time and attention to be able to like fine tune it and actually like become, to really gel with the board. And I was like, flip, I wish I had more time, because it would have been really fun to like ride something like that in the heat, but just had been focused all my time on just thrusters and all that kind of stuff. So that was a bit frustrating, but I don't know, all these things that you kind of wish you could have done, but that just definitely helped, be like, cool, I kind of think I'm slowly ready to head in a different direction. I mean, I did the QS the following year, kind of like half-heartedly, and it was kind of a weird one where you're just like, I don't know, on there and trying to do your best when you're at a contest, but also not really giving it 100% and doing other free surf trips. And then I remember at the end of that year, I decided to just kind of stop and not do the QS or any contest anymore. And that's when COVID happened, and it kind of felt like it all just happened at the right time, and it was kind of nice. No more contests were happening, so it was felt good, easier.
Yep. You're listening to Soundings with Jamie Brisick. This podcast and the Surfer's Journal are made possible due to TSJ's subscribing members and through the sponsorship of Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Yeti. To learn more about the Surfer's Journal and its sponsors, or to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. Now, back to our guest, Mikey February. So if you were to describe you're clearly a pro surfer, but if someone says like what, I guess like we know you, and I say we, fans of your surfing, we know Sonic Souvenirs, we know a lot of these films and clips, and a lot of the time you're riding like these beautiful waves. We don't quite know exactly where they are, and there's seemingly no one else in the water, which looks, to my mind, it's like that's the dream right there. Is that conscious, or are those trips just sort of fall into your lap? Like, have you gone, I want to explore remote surf breaks and make films?
I mean, it's always ideal when you want to do a surf trip. Obviously, there's a lot of other intention behind it, but I think it always helps to choose a place that's unexplored. And I don't know, I feel like there's so many crowds everywhere, and it's just really, you have more time, and it's very enjoyable I really enjoy that side of surf exploration, going up uncrowded waves and good waves. And but yeah, it's kind of, some of it's planned, some of it's also based on the different places and the time of year, depending on like when the project's meant to happen. I mean, a lot of Sonic Souvenirs and stuff has been with COVID and that, like, it's been hard to South Africa, you need like a visa for everywhere. So it's kind of been easier to just focus on Africa, and obviously depending on the time of year, there's different places that are good. Like, I know for the next one we're going to try to go outside of Africa, which will be nice, just something different. But it's been, I mean, I still find like I'm still finding my feet. I mean, I look up to so many other people in the free surfing side of things, and I see their project that they're coming out with, and I'm like, you can see a clear like sort of theme throughout, and you're like, I really admire that and look up to that and try find it for myself, I guess. And it's always hard on your own, because I feel like when you look at someone else you can see it clearly, but you kind of always hard on yourself and trying to like figure that out. But yeah, I think what I've been enjoying lately is, I mean, like Sonic Souvenirs, we've been not so much focusing it only on the waves, but also part of it's been like the music and the culture. And I think that when you go to all these destinations and you get to kind of experience the culture and you get to listen to the music and surf different waves, it allows you, I think having that influence allows you to surf those waves differently. And because I feel like it's fitting, just the way the music sounds in that area, or the people that you meet and stuff. I think that's, I think that's a nice way to approach it, because everywhere's so different, in the ocean so different in so many different ways and places. It's been fun to have that approach, and then along with riding different boards and seeing what works and what doesn't, I feel like different boards suit different waves, and it's been fun figuring that out and having that variety to kind of pick and choose from. It's really fun. I feel like you learn more things about the boards that you're riding and the ones that you're not at the same time. But yeah, I don't know, like, I guess, I don't know, sometimes you say that you're a professional surfer, but I don't know. I think it's, I don't know, doing all these surf trips and working on these films, and that is, I don't know what you call that, but I just really enjoyed doing that a lot. Yeah.
So with Sonic Souvenirs and some of the films you've done, are you involved? Are you there in the editing room and you're thinking about what song would go well with that session or that clip?
Yeah, it's been nice to be a part of that conversation, and often on the trip we'll record some of the tracks with the artists and musicians, and then sometimes we'll draw from old, like, I mean, some music from that place or that area, just as like just an added something different, so it's not just the same person. But um, yeah, I mean, in that sense, it's been really cool because, like I said before, like you always have this idea of what it's going to sound like and you always have an idea of what you want the film to look like. But getting there and then hearing the musicians, like their take on what you're sort of asking and what they've like seen has been pretty, just, it always ends up being so different, but so appropriate because you were there and that's what you heard on that trip. That's what you were listening to. That's what when you were surfing, all that kind of stuff. Like it ends up being like, you can't imagine when I watch the films back, obviously I have more of a personal experience from the place, but I can't imagine it any way different. I can't imagine any other music because it's so appropriate to what I experienced. And I think that's the thing of trying to be as inclusive as possible. And I really enjoy that side of the music side of things. I mean, obviously there's good music and genres that people can, put to a surf section. And I think certain people do it really well. But I think I don't know. I think it's nice to be, to take that sort of detail and put some sort of effort into, making it come from there because it kind of makes sense for the experience that you had.
Absolutely. I think it reminds me of kind of probiotics as I understand them, where like, local honey will
Yeah.
coming from an area kind of puts into your immune system and everything floating around you. Is there, is there music that, like when the music is working best with the surfing, is there something that is recurring? Is it more different every time? Like, is there a recurring theme that you see where it's like, okay, that kind of rhythm goes best with surfing?
I mean, it's definitely just been different. It's been interesting to see how the musicians sort of interpret what you are asking for and what you can. It's been nice now because we have some stuff to show them and they can kind of get an idea of what we've done before. But it's always going to be unique to what they are coming with.
Is the music in your head while you're surfing?
For sure. I mean, sometimes, the last trip we had the guy, Steven, who was the musician that we were kind of hanging around with. He'd be playing the drums on the beach and stuff, which was kind of weird because we haven't had that before, but we didn't ask him to. He just kind of was down to do that. And I mean, that will always just stick out in my head and be, what we experienced. So, but yeah, the music is always in your head. And it's funny because you always have this kind of preconceived idea of what the music's going to be like in that country. And I feel like, especially with like African music, there's a lot of things that are floating around Spotify playlists and stuff at the moment. And people think that that's like what it is, but and you kind of have that expectation when you're picturing going to these places and surfing and what the film's going to look like. But something that I've learned is every single time it's completely different when you go there and you actually spend some time with people that are living there currently making music or have, in the past or whatever, which has been super fun because it kind of teaches you to not really have too many expectations and kind of just go there and be open to whatever you're going to be hearing or surfing. And it's a nice way to approach it. Yeah.
What's it like to be in a lineup with fantastic waves and absolutely no one else to have to contend with?
It's amazing. It's weird. I've been on trips where it's just been myself, which has been a cool experience. But obviously, I feel like you always want to share waves with people. And then I've also had trips where you surfing with like some of the local crew that haven't really been exposed to much surfing outside of their little community. And that's also an eye-opener because I remember when I was in Ivory Coast now, we surfed this little like kind of rocky beach break, kind of point break, and the waves kind of were pretty bumpy and kind of broke really close to the rock. And just watching those guys like approach what they've been doing for years is like what they find as a good ride was like kind of just trying to get as close to the rock as possible. And then like, I don't know, it's just interesting to see someone's like idea of what surfing is, and it's always makes you look at it in a different way. And yeah, it's just fun. I think you have less influence, but also just influence from where you are.
Yep.
Which is nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Surfing some of the remote spots. Do you ever think of sharks? Is that ever like a thing in?
For sure. I mean, coming from South Africa and Cape Town, it always comes out. I mean, even when I was surfing in Mexico and I was by myself at the back, I was like, this feels sharky, but it's probably not. But
Yeah.
I guess that's always it's always a factor.
Yeah. What about right now? Who are your favorite surfers?
I mean, right now, definitely a mixture. Like, I still love watching videos of Mark Richards, and that connection between the boards that he made and his style and his surfing. And then, I mean, at the moment, currently, I've been loving watching Ethan Ewing surfing. I mean, it's really appealing to see someone ride like performance thruster the way he does. He's just looks, I mean, I feel like people can do that on like a twin fin or something. Like they can make it look easy and still have, a really cool style and be able to draw really nice lines. But seeing someone doing that on a performance board like that is really appealing, because sometimes when you ride a board like that, you wish you could do that. But just watching him do it is pretty amazing. And just the lines that he's been drawing has been, yeah, pretty fun to watch and appealing. Yeah.
What about in terms of surfboard design? Is it something that you're conscious? Is it something you're kind of exploring and you get passionate about, or do Britt Merrick at Channel Islands, does he just sort of go, here's something new to try? Like, are you super engaged in that yourself in design?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we definitely go through a lot of, I mean, it's definitely a balance of Britt, just waking up and having some rad ideas and being like, cool, I just want to get in a shaping band. All of a sudden there's like a fun board to try. And then also just, some of my desires, I guess. Like, I mean, the twin fin, I guess, came from just wanting a nice twin fin that would work at all the point breaks that we have in South Africa. And that evolved, and that was like a long process of like a year and a half or something. And so fairly like involved in that side of things. And I've definitely, I don't know, there's like a balance of like there's so many other fun boards and like out there as well. Like obviously ride a lot of like bonzes and things like that are really fun because it feels different. But I've definitely learned the value of working with someone for sure. Like, I mean, I've definitely noticed that a lot in the boards. Like I can't just jump on something else and feel like, it's always going to be super different. And I think that's the exciting thing about boards. Like there's so many boards being made in the world, and like there's just like a small percentage of boards or shapers or whatever that just like stand the test of time. And it really makes you value those boards, that, like certain models, like an MR or like, that basic like retro twin that he has, or like a Rush Short Bonza. Like you look at those board designs and you like just really value and admire how they've just, still working to this day, and people are still trying to do versions of that or like kind of their own. And there's obviously a lot of modern twists on things nowadays. But I mean, it's cool to see people trying new things. It's always nice, but you definitely put a lot of value on the boards that still work.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're here in California now, and you were just in Mexico. What is, if you were to, all the boards you're traveling with, what's in your that quiver?
I've got a mid twin, which is pretty much the CI mid, but just a twin fin version, and that's super fun. Especially for like California, like slower days and stuff. And then I got a free scrubber, the Tom Curran model from CI, and that's been fun to ride. Riding it in Mexico too, just kind of after watching that free scrubber part was pretty inspiring. It was kind of rad to ride those boards. I rode one of Tom's twin pins that he rode in that film as well down in Mexico. Bugs, we were staying at Punta Cana, and he let us ride some of his boards, which was pretty fun.
How fun.
Yeah, it was enjoyable. But that's not in my quiver. I have a twin pin, like a 6.0 kind of slim, thinned out version for when the waves get a little bit bigger and good, which hasn't really gotten too good, but that's there. and then just a few thrusters that I think it's like the CI Pro. Like, yeah,
Nice.
yeah, just some nice variety.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go with it all? What if you were to look at like the next 5 years of your surfing? What would you want to continue to do? Traveling?
Um, yeah, I'd love to just continue being able to do this and just be able to surf and go to these rad places. And yeah, I don't know, continue doing more like Sonic souvenirs would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy those trips and working on those projects. And yeah, just hopefully more stuff like that and getting to surf with some of my friends and some of the people I look up to.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I mean, I love music and would love to incorporate that into more forms in a different way and really just dive into that a bit more, which would be cool.
Yep.
And just kind of be more inclusive in that sense. And yeah, just create some fun things. I mean, I really admire the people that have continuously made like rad films and, stuff that's like just not what you normally watch and just something that's like inspiring and new and just a different way of approaching creating a surf form, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully just try to do more of that. And, I don't know what that looks like, but yeah, just, yeah.
That sounds great. Any favorite musicians that you listen to that kind of keeps recurring on your playlist?
I mean, Miles Davis, I love his music. And then Winston Mankuku he's a jazz artist from South Africa. You got some amazing music and yeah, just a lot of jazz at the moment, to be honest.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jazz goes so well with surfing.
It does. It does.
And I think there's a lot of sort of improv. I mean, there are different types of jazz, obviously, but there's like an improvisational thing that is common in the jazz world that is there for us as surfers as well.
For sure. It's like there's not much like of like a clear expectation, but which I guess when you go surfing, there's like you don't have to like know exactly what's gonna happen, but it kind of, if you kind of, I don't know, that like improv kind of way of thinking.
For sure.
Yeah, appropriate.
Do you have a favorite either maneuver or maybe even something as subtle as a feeling with a wave? I think so much of surfing is intuitive and there's the dance element, right? When you're like streaking across a wave. Is there something that is kind of the thing like for me personally, one thing I love so much about surfing is the way it plays back in your mind later. Like you'll have a surf and then all of a sudden you'll be like laying in bed on your way to sleep and you'll just like remember this carve or this like floater or whatever. And it's almost like visceral in your body.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Is there something like that for you? That is like, that's my favorite feeling.
Yeah, I don't know. I think just going fast is really fun. I think like I love that moment where you can like do a high line, but it's like perfect amount of like steepness in a wave where you're not getting lipped, but you're also it's not flat and you just get so much, I don't know, just that moment where you get to like kind of have so much speed and get in that zone of the wave is just such a thrilling feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of, I mean, to add more, I guess, if it does happen, it's always nice coming out of that and just, being able to bottom turn and have another section. I don't feel like that happens often. Like, sometimes you can do like a high line or like you can do like a nice turn, but when everything comes together and you can do like a nice steep high line and then just kind of just smoothly transition into like a nice bottom turn and then there's a nice beautiful section that you time perfectly that, and do, I don't know, just be able to still go fast and kind of put on the rail or something like that it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I like that. The high line is such a great artful thing that is maybe there are certain things like a big giant air is sort of for the spectators, it's like an obvious big moment.
Yeah.
Highline's like a subtle one it's almost like a selfish thing where it's like it feels so good for the surfer, but it's not all, I mean, it's beautiful to watch, of course, but it wouldn't translate in a world tour event the same way,
Yeah, true. I mean, it doesn't look as appealing, but it feels really good, which is it's kind of nice to have that.
Yeah. Is there a wave somewhere in the world or a region that you have not been that you really like to?
I don't know. I mean, I've been watching a lot of videos of Chile lately and those crazy long sand bottom lefts. And I guess just trying to figure out where there is a right like that in the world. I don't know where that is, but that's kind of that's the dream for me at the moment. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Nice. Well, such a joy talking to you, Mikey.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Soundings is produced by me, Jamie Brisick, and Jonathan Shifflett. You can find it on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. Our theme song is written and performed by Pazlin Chanton and Gita Veltisdodor. It is produced by Pazlin Chanton and engineered by Samur Kuja. Soundings is brought to you by the Surfers Journal, a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from Birdwell, FCS, Patagonia, Rainbow, Vans, Vissla, and Yeti. The Surfers Journal is published bi-monthly. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to visit surfersjournal.com and subscribe. Thank you again for listening to Soundings. We'll see you next time.